June is here, which means many major music publications put out their lists of the best albums of the year so far. We're going to talk about that, the new Weezer and Wednesday song, the second Converge album of the year, and more. And oh yeah, I saw Witch Club Satan last night. I'm Dave, I'm here with Andrew, and you're listening to BV Weekly.
So, do you feel validated that the stomp clap hipster discourse is back and now everyone's making the same point you made on BV Weekly a year ago?
I mean, just the wording of that question, how can I say no? I feel validated anybody makes a point that I thought. Yes, that's good to hear, actually. You just made me aware that was happening like a few minutes ago. So, I'm just getting a handle on it. But yes, do you feel just as argumentative as you did back
yes.
then?
Yes. If you are not as glued to Twitter as we are, or I am at least, basically, for some reason, this discourse is back and now people are saying...
Well, I think there's an Instagram video that...
Oh, right. It started on Instagram, right.
I don't know if it started there or not, but Bill and I both immediately thought that must be where it's coming from because we had both seen that video in our feeds. That video also got sent to my group chat. So this video is making the rounds of this guy that's just like walking around Williamsburg saying how it used to be cool and now it's expensive shops and restaurants and J. Crew and whatnot. In it, he basically references the stomp clap thing. Like, this is where hipster music like stomp clap was born. I definitely had that thought privately while watching that video of like, oh, come on. And now, yeah. So I guess some people took that to Twitter. Go on.
So what you said on the show, and what now is people are saying all over Twitter, is hipsters didn't like stomp clap, didn't listen to it. Hipsters hated it.
Sounds like me. Like me.
That's what you said. But no, of course I feel argumentative. Chris Weingarten tweeted, like, if you think that stuff is hipster, that's like thinking Blink-182 is punk. And I'm like, exactly, but I don't mean it. Like, you don't get to pick when your scene ends if you don't like the direction it goes in, you know? Like, you don't get to say, oh, that's not hipster because then the funny thing to me is people are like, no, hipsters were listening to MGMT, Vampire Weekend, and Arctic Monkeys. I'm like, oh, okay, my mistake. You mean these other major label radio bands? Like, oh, I didn't realize we were too cool for Mumford and Sons. You sound ridiculous when you take a step back.
I know, but people are coming at it. I mean, Chris was living it. Chris is in the band Parts and Labor.
Yeah,
music journalist, and you know. He's coming from it from like a lived experience of DIY Todd P shows and being on the ground in Williamsburg. Yeah. So that's
and I'm not dissing Chris. I'm disagreeing with him a little bit, but I'm talking about if people were saying no, hipsters didn't like stomp clap, they liked lightning bolt. I'd be like, okay, fair. You know, that's a good point.
Well, that's exactly what he's saying.
That's what he's saying. But you have a lot of people being like, no, hipsters were listening to like MGMT and Passion Pit. And I'm like, oh, you're just naming other major label bands that were also getting attacked by hipsters at the time for being like an abomination of my point about the Blink-182 comparison is just like, you don't get to say punk stops before Blink-182 get big, and you don't get to say hipster culture stops before stomp clap becomes the face of it in a mainstream sense. It's just like, and it's not more valid to have been listening to Vampire Weekend, who are also made fun of all the time, as you know very well. So I just think there's like a level of absurdity there where you're like, oh, okay, like it's all okay up until the Mumford Lumineers stuff. And then that's where I draw the line. This is no longer hipster music, even though a massive proportion of the population considers this to be hipster music. It's just like, yeah.
I don't know how this fits into the discourse, but it is an interesting side note that Chris Weingarten is also currently known as being the author of the 8.0 Angine de Poitrine Pitchfork review.
And there's a band that, you know, lightning bolt fans can feel is up their alley.
So arguably even more popular than Stomp Clap ever was, Angine de Poitrine, and Chris Weingarten approved. So
definitely not yet. more viral right now, although maybe not even. But hey, that's a good transition to something else we were going to talk about this week, which is, like you said in the intro of the episode, June is here, and that means a lot of music publications are putting out their best albums of the year so far lists.
But not us. We're not taking shots here.
No.
But we have always felt strongly that June 1st is not the middle of the year. Let's count it. All of January, February, March, April, May, that's 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So by June 1st, and I forget, every year I think I ask the same question. Do the mid-year lists that come out on June 1st have June albums in them? I don't think so.
So they have, sometimes they have in the past, and then I think like publications have maybe changed their mind on that. But like one especially glaring one to me is like, as we'll talk about, Converge are on a couple of these lists, and Converge literally have a second album this year out this week. So I'm like, the list comes out 4 days before Converge released their second record, and your list doesn't even acknowledge that. I mean, unless you feel strongly that the first album is like in your top 10 and the new one's nowhere near your list, you know? Because which it could be, and we do when artists release 2 albums in 1 year, a lot of times we're just like, if we love them both, they can just take the same slot on our list. But that one stuck out to me as like a glaring example of, you know, why stop the list at the end of May. But yeah, we like to do our list at the beginning of July because that's actually 6 months. Just like we try to do our year-end list at least towards the end of December, because they all kind of come out on December 1st, and then you miss things and blah, blah, blah. But one thing I know I like doing when these lists do start coming out is just devouring them all, seeing what I missed, and figuring out what kind of consensus is developing. It's always interesting to see that. And I think what really struck me is, of the major lists I've seen, nobody has the same number one as someone else. Angine de Poitrine, who you just mentioned, Exclaim's number one.
Which is like the most Canadian thing to do.
Right.
And Exclaim, Canadian magazine, if you don't know, they always have a very unexpected number one. Or they often have a very unexpected
number one. They often have a Canadian number one.
A Canadian number one.
And to their credit, I don't think we in the United States have a total grasp on like how much bigger Canadian things often are in Canada.
Right.
You know,
right.
like I only know about this from Canadians saying these things.
But I do know a lot of Canadian music industry people and Canadians, and they're always very, very proud of things that are Canadian because they have, I don't want to say it's, you know, they're always feeling compared to the United States. So when something is Canadian, I get it. When something's from my like neighborhood, I'm like, yeah, this thing is from my neighborhood. But so that's the kind of thing. And so there's a lot of Canadian pride for Angine de Poitrine. And if you're just talking notoriety, you know, music level, then yeah, there's an argument to be made. They're number one. And like we said, Pitchfork, even Mr. Chris Weingarten himself gave that album an 8. So this is not. And
they're on Pitchfork's list too.
Well, yeah, but Pitchfork doesn't actually have a list.
They have a list. Right. They update it every month,
it's just all the albums that got Best New Music.
No, that's not true.
Or that got 8 and higher.
I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it other than albums they want to put on the list. Some of them have gotten 7 point somethings, I'm pretty sure.
All right, that's weird. I just thought it was like, here's a page that has, I know they have like you can easily click in to see Best New Albums and 8 and
right.
higher.
They have
anyway.
Their Best New Albums page, their 8.0 plus reviews, but this is different. And it comes with their little like recommended if you likes that are all usually clever and creative and not just like music based.
Right. It has actual new writing on it.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think Angine de Poitrine, undeniably a top 3 music story of the year. I've probably said before and we'll say again that like I don't know if the album would be a contender for me without the rest of it, because they're just so magnetic with the visuals and everything. But then
hold that thought for later in this episode, by the way, because that's going to be relevant again. But
but like that stuff is all part of it. It does exist and it makes me pay attention, and the record is really cool. And honestly, you know, I think there's a ton of like mid 2000s math rock bands it reminds me of that were less popular than this band is now, but it's also different. It does have something unique and cool to it, and it's fun and it's dancey, and like there was that video that just came out with New York Times played it for kids, right? And they were like, I think one of the kids was like, it sounds like Sesame Street or something. But I was like, this is like, it's like fun kids music too, because of how bouncy it is. Like, I think
I don't
even
know,
if
the
you
kids didn't like it. Did you watch the video?
Oh, I didn't. No, I guess I didn't really watch it. I just saw like some, but like, well, I don't know. I would imagine I could see like a room of kids like bouncing up and down to this song. That's where my brain's at now as a new dad. But I think it's a fun record, even if you never heard the words math rock or don't care about them. And so there's something to it. I expect it to probably be on my own list by the end of the year. Not at number one. I did want to add, though, that also the Canadian government cares more about art than the American government. So I think that's also probably part of the whole pride thing in there, too, of like there's actually a push in the country of Canada to support the arts. And so that maybe gives you even more pride for your own art because that's,
to support them at home, but also overseas. There's kind of like export budgets, to our friends M for Montreal are like, that's their lifeline.
We did that whole story when we put out, we wrote that 80-page magazine on Alexis on Fire's career, and they got like a $10,000 grant from the government to make their first video when they were still like a nobody's local screamo band. I mean, can you imagine like Thursday getting a grant from the U.S. government to make a video for like a song on their first record? No.
No.
The answer is no. So that was Exclaim's number one. Stereogum's number one is Slayyyter. Slayyyter, in case you're not on the Slayyyter train. And Consequence, formerly Consequence of Sound, had Neurosis at number one.
Which is a very me thing to do.
Very you thing to do. Pitchfork's list is unranked, but their highest score this year so far is Aldous Harding with a 9.0, the only 9 of the year, I believe. And she's also number 4 in Stereogum, number 12 on Exclaim, and the 9th best reviewed album on Metacritic and the 23rd best reviewed album on albumoftheyear.org. I have been spending a little more time looking at Metacritic and albumoftheyear.org because they like aggregate critic scores, but they don't always pull from the same sources or the same amount of sources. So there's some discrepancies.
And then there's just confusingly, there's sites that don't get put on, like we don't.
Like us.
Yeah.
we don't score albums.
We don't score albums, but still, there's some sites that they don't they like kind of guess a score?
I know that like on albumoftheyear.org, if your list is unranked, I think when they score it for the aggregate list, everything on it gets a 5, I think. Whereas like I think they have like on a ranked list, a number 1 gets a 10 and a 10 and onwards gets a 1 or something. And if it's unranked, they all get 5s. So you'd think like, well, see, this is why actually reading reviews and not just looking at numbers matters. But if you actually read the reviews on Brooklyn Vegan, you'd think because it's notable releases in Indie Basement and are basically recommendation columns, you'd think they could all get like a quote unquote generally positive. Like, I don't know, whatever, like give them all a 7 or something. Yeah. So no consensus number 1 yet. But here's what else I saw as far as developing consensus. So Wendy Eisenberg and Underscores are the highest rated albums of the year so far on Metacritic, both tied at 89.
Both highly rated by you as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both. Big fan. Underscores number 2 on Album of the Year with an 88. It's also on Stereogum, Exclaim, and Pitchfork lists. Wendy Eisenberg is number 8 on Album of the Year, also on Consequence of Sound, Stereogum, and Pitchfork lists. And it's in the top 10 on both Stereogum and Consequence. And Slayyyter is also on Exclaim and Pitchfork's list, number 22 on Metacritic, but get this, it's number 100 on Album of the Year. Whatever they're pulling from is not people reviewing Slayyyter, I guess.
Right.
And then Rate Your Music, which we should bring up, is constantly changing, and it's a little too fickle to really bring into this conversation because there's always the recency bias of like a new album shoots to number 1. And in this case, Boards of Canada's album from last week is currently number 1.
Which is such a Rate Your Music thing to do.
Totally. And Slayyyter and Underscores are also in the top 10.
Boards of Canada there was a lot of discourse on Twitter. Did you also notice that?
I saw that, and
is it real?
I got it. Okay, so thank you for saying that. This is where my brain went to, like, the feed is fake. I was like, are like the reactions to this album actually divisive, or are like 2 people on Twitter not into the record and just like they're the types of accounts that Twitter puts in the For You pages?
But then I was wondering if there's definitely, let's say, even outside of music, there's rage bait type accounts that blue checks that are getting money from Twitter if they have a lot of reactions. And I feel like a lot of times these they don't even have a theme. They pick up on something. They're just going for the algorithm. They're going for rage baits. A lot of times it's politics. I don't think they even care what they write. They're just doing it. And so is it possible that people were some of these types of accounts were picking up on the fact that Boards of Canada, let's even use Geese as an example. When people realized that if you typed Geese onto Twitter, your tweet was going to be popular. Could this have been happening where people started just saying that about Boards of Canada have popular tweets? I don't know.
Totally. And then also like, once you look at a tweet for more than 3 seconds, all of a sudden the next 5 tweets in your feed are about the same topic.
Yeah.
So
right. No, that seems more true than ever.
Yeah, it's like creepy. I'll keep going on this consensus observations. So no album is number 1 on 2 lists that we saw, but Rat Boys is number 2 on 2 lists, Stereogum and Consequence, and it's also on Pitchfork and Exclaim.
Pitchfork gave Boards of Canada best new music, though, by the way.
Yes, and I think it was on at least one of the lists I saw. I should probably fact check that as we're talking.
And one of the haters was Real, though, on Twitter. You might immediately know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
A Pitchfork reviewer.
Yeah.
And he even took shots at the Pitchfork review, but he disclaimed it by saying something like, I mean that lovingly. Or yeah.
Yeah, no, he's interesting the way he... I thought that the record... Okay, I don't have like a take like good or bad, but I was surprised that the record didn't strike me as a Boards of Canada album. Like, I think with electronic music, especially, I'm not like a big electronic person, so I'm not the best authority on this kind of thing. But like when a beloved electronic artist or group makes a big comeback like this, it had been so long, I feel like I want to hear the thing that made me like fall in love with them and like like when Aphex Twin puts out, that's a bad example. Fortet is a really good example of like every time there's a new Fortet record, I'll hear it and it'll be come on shuffle. I won't even expect it. And I'll be like, that's Fortet. Like it's just so distinct. I don't think that this album sounds like what I think of Boards of Canada sounding like. And that's fine. That's not good or bad. It's just, that was my first thing I noticed about this record is it didn't have like the traits I associate with the group.
This conversation is reminding me that I haven't even listened to it yet. Oops. But Bill did review it.
Very, very, very long.
It's you could read it.
Yeah,
read Bill's review on Brooklyn Vegan as well. But yeah.
So I'll keep going and then we're almost done here. But other albums that were on 3 lists, My New Band Believe, Freako, Grace Ives, Robin, 9 Inch Noise, and Mandy Indiana. So to recap quickly, I think if we're looking for some level of consensus at this point, like what are we kind of thinking are the usual suspects of this year? Slayyyter, Neurosis, Angine de Poitrine, Aldous Harding, Wendy Eisenberg, Underscores, Rat Boys, My New Band Believe, Freako, Grace Ives, Robin, 9 Inch Noise, Mandy Indiana. That's probably the records that we can, especially now that they're on these mid-years, it's like if your publication was about to make your mid-year and didn't have one of these, it's like, oh man, maybe I should revisit that whatever record. I wonder, so those are the ones I think we'll expect to see.
I told you Miski was underrated.
True, although she was really high on one of the lists, Stereogum or Consequence. But I think something that really stands out to me is like My New Band Believe and Wendy Eisenberg. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about indie trends, where like those just feel like they're everywhere and they're these like 60s, 70s style psychedelic folk records. It's just interesting. Underscores and Slayyyter for sure just feel like they're everywhere. And I guess they've kind of got the whole sort of like that's like leading the way for electropop at the moment. So it feels like.
What about Fuckers?
Fuckers were not on as many lists.
They were on a bunch, though.
They weren't on as many.
And
though.
you haven't mentioned Fader's list yet, which Fuckers was also on.
That's true. I didn't mention Fader's list because it was like so different. I should have at least included it for the sake of figuring out. But yeah, it was like there was a lot way less crossover with it.
At a minimum, it's on Fader, Consequence, and Exclaim.
Okay, so then Fuckers is a 3. But yeah, I don't know. It's the year of electropop and psych folk is all I'm trying to say. And I really like those. The Wendy Eisenberg and My New Band Believe records came out when I was on hiatus from the podcast. So I never got to give my cosign, but I like both. Both are, Wendy is definitely on my list. That's really up my alley. And I think my new band Believe is slightly too overtly pastiche for me, but probably somewhere on my list because of how many times I have listened to it and did enjoy it. I love the Underscores record. That's probably in my top 10. That one is really, really, I think it reminds me of like, because her last record was way more hyper pop, and this one I feel is almost more just kind of more regular pop. Not like total like radio, I guess, but like it feels like when a more sort of experimental artist kind of leans into being a little more accessible, but they still stand out from actual pop, you know, like an Animal Collective, Merriweather Post Pavilion kind of moment. So that one really stands out to me.
I really like the Slayyyter and Grace Ives albums. I still need to listen to Underscores more. I only heard a few songs, if I'm being totally honest.
I like the Slayyyter record. I think that one's like really interesting to me because, I mean, we kind of talked about it when we were talking about indie trends last week, but it's like Slayyyter, I think, unlike Underscores, is kind of just a regular pop star, but then has all these nods to indie culture and indie artists. But also, like, I think she did some interview where she gave like her pop trifecta, and it was Britney Spears, Blackout, I think Lady Gaga, and Kesha. Maybe is that, and I feel like that's what it was. But either way, like, that's like, it feels very post Brat also in that way of like leaning into late 2000s trash pop. And so I think that the combination of like this record that combines like Blackout era Britney and Kesha with like Justice and Santa Gold and this, like, I guess we can say indie sleaze thing, it feels like, oh yeah, that makes sense because those things were not that different in the first place, and leave it to somebody had to come along and be like, let's combine that overtly. And so it's a fun dose of 2007 to 2009 nostalgia. And I don't know, I'd love to hear the opinion of it from someone who didn't live through that era, because I do feel like all these 2000s nostalgia things, like when I was coming up as a, like, getting into music in the post-punk revival era, I didn't already know Gang of Four and stuff like that. And so my perspective is so different than the people who did. And now I'm the old person who knows Gang of Four, so to speak. So there's no clear album of the year consensus pick yet, but there's definitely a consensus metal album of the year. It is Neurosis for sure. Highest rated album of 2026 so far on albumoftheyear.org with an 89. Higher than Underscores and Wendy Eisenberg and Slayyyter and all that. It's number 3 of the year on Metacritic. It's number 1 on Consequence of Sound's list, also on Exclaim, Stereogum, and Pitchfork's list, and it's number 3 on Rate Your Music. So clearly, this is the consensus metal album of 2026 so far.
And as often happens, it's also the type of metal album, a high-profile one that critics who don't, only focus on metal are more likely to hear. It's definitely they're definitely one of those bands that crosses over, and it was huge news for that album to come. So it's also not surprising in that way that it got the attention, which is also why Converge gets a lot of attention. And I'm not taking anything away from either of those bands. They deserve the attention. But
right. No, for sure. We love the Neurosis record, both of us. We also love both Converge records. And Converge is the second most consensus metal record if you consider it metal, because, I mean, I think these two Converge records are more on their punk side, but Converge was on both Consequence and Exclaim and got a lot of good reviews. Sun was on Pitchfork's list, but no others. And that was pretty much it for metal on major lists that are not metal publications. But yeah, I mean, I love the Neurosis record, but I also think that it's getting the consensus slot by being the most newsworthy metal album of the year. And again, not to take away from it, but like if I had to think of the metal album I enjoy most this year, I might go with the Silver. Is there a metal record or records that you kind of wish you were seeing on some of these lists?
Totally agree on the Silver. First of all, that one. The Neurosis was one of those albums where on first listen, I thought that could be the album of the year, and I love it. But I'm with you on the Silver. It's sort of, that's super high on my list. And I don't know, this year I'm also, I've been big into the Mayhem album, and then I always get excited in new Dark Throne albums, so kind of 90s black metal is back. For me, it's just black metal in general.
Or never goes away for
It never
you.
goes away for me. There's the Immolation album, of course, consistently great,
And that one
legendary New York
was
death metal. And then I do want to shout out one album that I mentioned on an episode while you were away, which is Swedish band Speglas. It's like a progressive death metal album in the kind of this year's, because last year's Ancient Death was Ancient Death, sort of in the, if you're looking for this year's Blood Incantation, Tomb Mold, Ancient Death, that kind of psychedelic death metal lineage. Speglas is actual members of Swevin, Morbus Kron, that family of bands, and they put out an album earlier this year. I went into that along with another Morbus Kron Swevin related band on a previous episode. That album is definitely worth checking out. But a band who we love and could easily kind of be a band you would expect to see on non-metal site end of year lists is the Frozen Soul album from this year, which Frozen Soul is a death metal band from Texas, came out of the same scene as like Power Trip.
Yeah. No, for sure. The Texas metal punk scene.
Yeah, and we super excited about that band early on, and I don't know, these things come in waves. So I feel like maybe on the last, first of all, I've seen Frozen Soul live so many times. They tour like crazy. They're always the opener on big package tours. I think for the last album, it didn't hit me as much. And then it's just like another death metal band, but it has come back around because this new Frozen Soul album, I've been putting it on as much as I can. I have been constantly like, oh, I want to listen to Frozen Soul again. This is also a very high, the album opens with a very high profile moment because the frontman of My Chemical Romance is a guest on that album. It's not like you would know that if it didn't say, but
he does have a really good extreme metal scream.
Yeah. And
not his first time showing it off.
Right.
He's a real one, Gerard Way.
Yes. That's kind of a cool fact about this album. And I assume it's giving it even more attention. I've always thought, I used to think years ago that Frozen Soul would be kind of a bigger headlining band by now and not like the opener on so many tours. And maybe that's still going to happen for them.
I mean, they definitely seem like people with good taste like them. Obviously, a lot of famous people with good taste like them. So I feel like, there's plenty of room for them to get bigger and bigger. But I agree with you. I mean, you like death metal a lot more than me, but this band really speaks to me. I do think that there is just something in the Texas metal punk scene water where like the punk bands and the metal bands share so much DNA. And as someone who kind of likes punk more than metal, I hear a lot of what I like in Frozen Soul. So they're 3 for 3 for me. And this is definitely up there for me too. I was just also going to say, because you mentioned Immolation, that so albumoftheyear.org accounts for metal publications, which Metacritic basically doesn't. So the top 10 on albumoftheyear.org actually is filled with metal, including Immolation, Converge, At the Gates, and Cryptic Shift. Immolation is also really high in Rate Your Music. So is Panopticon. Also worth noting, though, that as is the case with Rate Your Music, these metal albums tend to have a lot less people rating them than, say, like the Slayyyter and Underscores records. But yeah, it seems to, you like death metal more than me, but it does seem like the Immolation record keeps coming up.
Yeah, it grew on me, which relatively speaking, I love Immolation, their last album. I really like, one of my favorite albums of the year, high up, no question. When on first listen of the new Immolation, I was like, is it finally not happening for me with this band? But then a few listens later, I was fully on board, and yeah, one of the best doing it.
One I'd have to add, I'd say as newsworthy as Neurosis, but maybe not a band that's historically as critic loved, but that Poison the Well album, First in 17 Years, has really stuck with me as one of my favorite like heavy records this year. And I feel like if you are excited about the Neurosis and Converge records, that it would be in that same, they're literally touring with Converge this year, but again, like they, I can also see how if Neurosis have always been in the sort of indie rock canon, whereas Poison the Well have not. But hey, no time like the present to add them in.
Converge and Poison the Well also in the hardcore world. And let's talk about great hardcore albums this year, because I'm also seeing Converge on hardcore lists and Poison the Well.
And what I'm not seeing basically is punk and hardcore on the major lists. Joyce Manor were on a couple, and I love that record, and you love it too, as we've talked about.
Yes, Joyce Manor high up on my list.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's not for the sort of multi-genre, so to speak, list. It doesn't seem like punk and hardcore have had a big first half of 2026. But yeah, tell me about.
Yeah, I mean, Angel Dust showed up on Stereo Gum's list. Mm-hmm. I don't know how hardcore that album is. It's on the lighter side of the adjacent.
Don't let Justice trip here. You say that. I know what you meant.
They're clearly in the hardcore adjacent sphere, are they not? Oh, this was okay. The new album is more hardcore than usual.
Well, no. But I also mainly mean like Justice Trip literally is the kind of person who talks about like, you know, if I'm doing it, it's hardcore. Because like I'm from like that's him and Pat Flynn have like sort of bonded publicly on this topic of like if I'm strumming an acoustic guitar on the street, it's hardcore, you know, like so I don't know.
How would Justice feel about a major publications list having 50 albums and Angel Dust being the only hardcore on the album list, being called like the only hardcore album in that context?
I can't speak for him. I imagine he would have a lot of bands he'd want to hype up as deserving to be there. But I just, I know what you mean. I just don't want to. I don't think we should say Angel Dust isn't hardcore.
Okay, well then there is a hardcore there is a hardcore album on Stereo Gum's list, and that would be Angel Dust.
But yeah, there's other than that, and obviously, I mean, we know Tom from Stereo Gum is a huge hardcore fan and runs an amazing hardcore column on Stereo Gum. But yeah, other than that, we haven't seen as much hardcore this year, but I know that you have things you're going to mention.
We also know that Tom lives in Virginia and has a lot of Virginia hardcore pride, and that he definitely loves the new album by Division of Mind from Virginia, who, if we're looking at an album that a lot of people are having in their top fives of hardcore right now, I think that one is like topping the lists. There's another band from Virginia called Killing Pace who share a member with Division of Mind, who also have a new, I mean, they're like practically metal. Well, a lot of these bands are practically metal, but they also have a new album that's on lists. So shout out Virginia this year. But I think the hardcore album that's high on my list, the only one that's kind of way above, is the Feels Like Heaven album. Who maybe that's not a hardcore album. I'm saying Angel Dust might not be a hardcore.
Right.
Album.
It's like basically emo.
Okay. So Angel Dust is more hardcore than Feels Like Heaven. To me, that's the big one. And also seeing that on other lists, I think the most high profile album, which is absolutely great, and I thought could have easily seen on some lists, is Terror. If, you know, could Terror not be the Neurosis right now?
Oh, for sure. I mean, hardcore. Or the Converge, really, because the band that never stops.
But Converge are on the hardcore list, so that's all.
Right.
So Converge are kind of also hardcore.
Well, Converge and Terror are both lifers who make being a lifer look really, really easy.
And then one more newer band who are not even out of high school yet, which are making...
Is that true?
Yeah, and that's the band Start Today, who... The singer of Start Today, which... Fun fact, is the brother of Tu Hollis.
So also the son of the Tortoise member?
And the mom, the son, yes, the son of a member of Tortoise, the brother of Tu Hollis, and his mom is also a notable music industry feature. Start Today, they've been on tour a lot. They just played Black and Blue Bowl here in New York City, which on a bill with Terror, actually. And the singer announced from stage, I wasn't there, but I heard about this from multiple people, that he left senior year of high school to do this tour, something like that.
Wow.
So
that's, I mean, you know, hardcore is supposed to be for and by the kids. So
yeah,
you can't, if your hardcore representation is just people who've been doing it for 20 years, then you're missing out. So
that's it. Yeah, those are kind of the albums sticking out to me.
So also, not a ton of rap on these lists, and even less consensus rap. When there was rap albums on lists, it seems like more different than ever. And what I definitely have not seen is the type of rap albums that you and I tend to gravitate towards. I guess we both sort of like that whole sort of post boom bap thing, and we've talked about our love for like Rock Marciano and IDK and Elucid, and I know you like the Larry June Currency Alchemist and Random Boldy James Nicholas Craven records that we both mentally grouped together because they're both two cool rappers and one cool producer. But that stuff's not having the moment this year, I guess. Haven't seen that on any lists.
Yeah, you named, all those rap albums you named, they're kind of artists that I predictably will like each time. And it's true. I have all of those in rotation and I like them each more and more the more I listen. But it does feel like, of course he likes these. Of course I like those. But I will say one album that we collectively were not sleeping on, but I was sort of sleeping on. This happens as the year goes on, where the list of albums that have come out gets bigger and bigger, and you review a lot of them and Bill reviews a lot of them, and then I discover that none of us reviewed them, or maybe we're covering them, and I'm making a list and it's getting bigger and bigger. And then there's just some albums that I'm like, oh, that another month went by that I still didn't listen to that one. And one of those, because I guess I didn't occur to me that it was like an essential listen, is the Denzel Curry new group, the Scythe.
I got wrecked for mispronouncing that on Instagram.
The Scythe.
It's a real word. I feel stupid for not knowing that. It's a real word.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. And don't put that clip on Instagram. It's super high up on somebody's end of year mid-year list, Stereo Gums, I think, maybe top 10. And so I put it on finally. Oh yeah, I instantly like it. I was officially sleeping on that one. So don't take that album for granted just because it's not a proper Denzel. Like, that's always the thing. It's like, oh, this is not a real Denzel Curry album or something. So then you just kind of are like, this is some inessential. I don't know.
No, I know I feel like I'm constantly making the case for things that seems like they're presented as somehow less than a proper album. It's Consequences list, not Stereo Gums, by the way. Number 5 on Consequence.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I kept getting... sometimes I thought I had them open in 2 different tabs, and that confused this. Not today, but I previously thought I was looking at one when I was looking at the other. Anyway, yeah, thanks, because it made me revisit it, and I did really like it.
I think maybe my favorite rap album this year, or at least one that stuck with me, I found on Pitchfork's list. It's Lord Jamanti Agban. If I'm probably kind of butchering the pronunciation a little bit there, but that one just kind of passed me by, and I saw it on, and Pitchfork gave it best of music, but I guess I didn't notice, and then I saw it on their list and listened, and that one really stuck out to me. But I have not really heard much about it, like outside of seeing it on that list, so I don't know like how omnipresent it is, but really cool record.
Do you have any albums that you also discovered on these mid-year lists yet that kind of you were sleeping on?
I haven't yet. I definitely saw some unfamiliar names, but I haven't done my deep dive where I start listening to stuff. What about you?
Yes. I mean, I don't even know if you count the Scythe, because I just hadn't hit play on that one yet, and very familiar with Denzel. And I mean, you
like very much know who, yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Denzel Curry and some of the other rappers that are on that album. But for somebody completely new that I realized I was completely sleeping on, it's LA-based R&B neo-soul singer Arima Ederra, if I'm saying that right. It's Arima, last name Ederra. Her new album, A Road to Nowhere, came out in March, and it's high up on somebody's list. I realize it's gotten great reviews elsewhere. It was one of those where I just hit play and instant, like, beautiful voice, super tasteful and interesting production, very chill vibe album. Arima Ederra. Given it a few spins already in the past few days and plan to continue.
Well, like you, I've also been sleeping. And like I said, I haven't really, it's been a crazy week, and there's so many new albums out this week that I've kind of been like rushing to like try to hear all of them before they're all out.
The struggle is real.
Yeah. So I've been sleeping too. So hopefully, maybe, I don't know, in 2 episodes from now, I'll tell you I agree. So what else on year-end, mid-year list stuff?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I'm wondering, first of all, stay tuned. As we said earlier, July, if we're doing a mid-year list, that's when it's coming. We'll get proper. So I don't know if you want to give any more spoilers, but do you have kind of a list of recent albums that you wanted to highlight at all?
Yes. You know what? I'm going to do 3 Q2 albums, quarter 2 albums that haven't come up yet in this conversation.
Okay, so let me just preface that by saying that we did a previous episode 100% dedicated to Andrew's Q1 list, which at the time also included a disclaimer that Neurosis wasn't on it because we recorded it before he knew Neurosis was coming out, related to getting ahead of things when he was having a baby. So I don't know if I can decide based on what you said today if Neurosis would have been on that one now, but
so I can say I don't know that it would have cracked my 10, but also I think my quarter 1 top 10 is different now than it was then.
Okay.
I mean, the nature of list making, but especially with the fact that I made that list in February, and I had listened to as many March albums as I could before making it. But once I settled into my new life and I caught up on a lot of stuff, and I did check out other records that were getting hyped that weren't albums I'd even heard yet. I have a lot in my regular rotation that I wasn't even listening to then, and stuff that was on that list that I haven't really revisited as much. So, but we'll see by the end of the year. We got a long way to go before we can figure out what lands where. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's been an interesting year for me as a music listener. Did you have more to say, or am I?
No, give me 3 albums from Q2 that haven't been mentioned yet.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna first keep going on a tangent though.
Okay.
I said this last week, but I'm just gonna say it again in this context. I think my favorite album of the year so far is probably Star Moles, which was a quarter 1 album. I hadn't heard it until quarter 2, so that's perfect example.
Yeah, there you go.
That cracks my top 10, knocks off whatever number 10 was. Neurosis probably isn't on it. But it's, and again, I think my favorite heavy record of the year is The Silver. I think that's the one that excites me the most, which wasn't on that top 10, but I think got some kind of honorable mention on that
definitely
episode.
did.
Yeah. And then, I mean, these were Q2, but like I said earlier, really loving the Wendy Eisenberg and my new band Believe. Really loving the Brown Horse that you mentioned last week. It's an album you're also loving. I also really like the 9 Inch Noise album, which was mentioned. I'm just going to throw it out there. That's been a regular rotation for me. But okay, 3 albums from Q2 that we haven't talked about yet on this episode that are on my list somewhere. Thomas Dahlbaum's record, which has MJ Lenderman on drums and backing vocals, which we talked a little bit the week it came out, but I have not stopped listening to this thing. I was already into the singles before it was out. I've said this before on this show. I like making playlists of singles from upcoming albums and just kind of throwing it on when I'm doing whatever. Those songs always were grabbing me, but having the whole album and the ability to put it on in the car or something, not just have the advanced copy with laptop speakers and whatever else, it's just really, really clicking for me. One thing I didn't say when we mentioned the album first coming out is he considers Damien Jurado a big influence. And we talk a lot about, he's in that indie country realm. And we talk a lot about how a lot of the indie country forebears are, a lot of that stuff gets compared to Songs Ohio, especially, and Bonnie Prince Billy. And, I'm forgetting others, Drive By Truckers, of course. But there's one big one I'm blanking on. But I had never really thought about Damien Jurado as kind of one of those influenced the new kind of alt country scene. And so I've also been going back to his records and hearing how well they fit with this whole sort of thing, as a side note. But Thomas Dahlbaum recommended if you like MJ Lenderman, Damien Jurado, Friendship. He reminds me a little bit of Friendship. Pedro the Lion, really just great guitar riffs, great lyrics, indie rock, a little country. And then we mentioned not seeing enough punk on these lists. So my next 2 are punk. Love seeing all the Joyce Manor love, big for me, but give the love to Basement too, I think. From the same scene and era. It's their first in 8 years, and I genuinely think it's their best album yet. I really think that going with producer John Congleton has been huge for Basement. I think it brings out a side of them that's never existed before, and it just feels so refreshing and exciting for a band who already has been incredible for years. And Prince Daddy and the Hyenas' new record, which, speaking of producers, they did this one with Joe Reinhardt from Algernon and Hop Along and Film. And Joe did their first record 10 years ago. They work really well together. This album just feels like one of the most straightforward, easy to like Prince Daddy and the Hyena records. I mean, they had Cosmic Thrill Seekers was like a rock opera. The record that followed, I think self-titled, was a little bit more like indie rock. And this is just sort of like Prince Daddy, like not overthinking it, making just really good sort of indie pop punk. And especially if you like Joyce Manor, highly recommended. I'd say if you like Joyce Manor, Green Day, and Weezer, and you haven't ever heard of Prince Daddy and the Hyena, this album. So those are my three that I want to be seeing on more of these lists.
I didn't fully see that list coming. I did check out the Prince Daddy album, and the first time I put it on, I hated it. I was like, but then I realized that was me. That was just the mood I was in. I was like, this is way the opposite of metal. And so then this is
that's a great. I hope that the CD or whatever has like a quote on it. This is way the opposite of metal. Dash Brooklyn Vegan.
Yeah, but then I waited until I was in a better mood and put it on, and I did enjoy it for what it was. But I kind of, and I've liked this band in the past, but I kind of file it under too pop punk for me, which is fine. It's fine. I don't need to put every band into rotation.
It's true.
The Basement album's growing on me. The Dahlbaum album is definitely an album that also kind of didn't hit me on first listen, especially once you overhyped it to me. But I just, I liked it more on second, so I'm going to keep that one going. So I sort of, what's the M band we have not mentioned? Mildred.
Yes, I was trying to remember who that was. Right. Steven Hyden hyped them. I haven't listened yet.
Oh, damn. See? So in like on Q3, you're going to be like, my favorite album.
Honestly, no, it's on my to listen list. I mean, so here, hey, spoiler alert, listeners of BB Weekly, it's hard to listen to every album you want to listen to by the time of the next BB Weekly episode. Yeah, it's on my list. I can't wait to hear it.
Roll if you like Thomas Dahlbaum.
Roll.
I called you out for this.
Yeah, I called you out for this privately.
Like my whole life, I've just been saying roll if you like instead of recommend if you like.
Are you like pronouncing RIYL to yourself? Are you like Ryol? Is that what's happening?
However you want to make me seem less dumb, that's fine. I'll take it. But I just realized that's just like a thing. I just have said it that way. I never analyzed myself saying it that way until you pointed it out and made me think about it and how obviously nonsensical my version is.
Will I roll you listen to the Thomas Dahlbaum album again?
Recommended. It's harder to say recommended. I think that's what it is.
Not relatable content to anyone.
Roll if you like. Way faster. Recommended if you like Thomas Dahlbaum, Mildred, and anything MJ Lenderman's doing and all that. So yeah, this is your specialty. You got to get on that Mildred album. Yeah, so speaking of MJ Lenderman and alt country, indie country, and MJ Lenderman, of course, of Wednesday, it's been another big week in the Wednesday MJ Lenderman world, not just with Dahlbaum recommendations, but Wednesday herself, Carly, aka Wednesday, that's like you can call Carly just Wednesday now. Or
it was
maybe
a solo
always.
project originally.
Right. So Wednesday, aka Carly, is on a brand new Weezer track that just came out, which was very cool to see. And I like the song, and I'll just get right to that. And it's, but this also came out the same day. And then, by the way, that came with an announcement of Weezer's like 20th album, the Gold album. And that came out the same day that, oh man, sad news. We found out that MJ Lenderman has dropped off the Zach Bryan tour that he was supposed to play. He was supposed to play like 5 dates in August. And we loved that fact because we're always looking for validation of our Zach Bryan love and approval. And MJ.
I love that fact because I'm always looking for MJ Lenderman having more reasons to get more popular.
That too. But, a lot of people didn't love that fact. Let's be straight. When MJ Lenderman announced on his own Instagram that he was opening for Zach Bryan, he got a lot of hate in the comments. People were like, sell out, that guy sucks, whatever. he stuck by it for many months, but now he is off. But he did not say, I am leaving this tour because Zach Bryan sucks. He said a much nicer, different thing. He said, the official statement is MJ Lenderman and The Wind are no longer able to join Zach Bryan on tour next month. After years on the road, I need time to rest, recalibrate, and work on new songs. Thank you to Zach for the invitation. We'll see you all another time. Signed, Jake. So that happened.
Well, I'm happy that he's working on new songs.
Yes, and I hope everything's okay and it's not actually something more serious. What do you think of that new Wednesday Weezer song? As our number one Weezer fan who doesn't like any songs by Weezer that came out since the 90s.
I think it's really cool that it exists. And, not the first time that Weezer have... I think it's really cool that it exists. I mean, it's not the first time that Weezer have sort of tapped into something cool happening in the comparative underground. Their 2014 record, Everything Will Be All Right in the End, had Bethany from Best Coast and Patrick from Titus Andronicus on it. Stuff that hipsters were listening to instead of Stomp Clap at the time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that Wednesday's Carly's in the video. Also, when I saw Weezer last at When We Were Young, Blonde Shell came on stage with them and sang I Just Threw Out the Love of My Dreams. So like that, again,
and Rivers
really cool.
Also showed up with Olivia Rodrigo, right? One of her many guests in the past year.
Yeah, there was a Weezer Olivia thing.
I know it's not exactly the same thing, but yeah.
No, actually, it's not at all the same thing. Come to think of it, but and then
it was Olivia doing with Weezer what Weezer does with Best Coast.
It was Olivia doing the Weezer, but that's better. That's
what
better
Weezer does with Best Coast. And not only did that, what year did that Best Coast Weezer collaboration happen?
It was 2014.
Right, but it's newly relevant, right? Not that song was having a moment. That song became viral on TikTok or something. It's really popular for Weezer right now. And when they were doing some publicity stunts to get attention on them this year for this album, ahead of this album announcement, they played that surprise free show like at the boardwalk or somewhere in Venice, somewhere in California. Bethany was there and sang that song with him in the year 2026. And then just months later, Wednesday on a track.
Wednesday, yeah. And the record, the Gold album, the new Weezer album was produced by Kenneth Bloom, formerly Kenny Beats, who also produced the Geese record and was more of a rap producer. Until more recently, he worked with Vince Staples and a lot of other people. Denzel Curry, speaking of Denzel Curry, someone he worked with a bunch. He also did the Idols record. I think the last two Idols records. So yeah, he's kind of getting into the rock space now. I wish I liked the song more than I do, but I'm very happy it exists. Awesome for Wednesday.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about more new music in a little bit. But first, I just wanted to quickly talk about a show I saw. So I've seen a bunch of shows. Andrew, you're back on the podcast. It's great. I know you're still on live show hiatus, but I have been going to quite a few shows lately. I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but I mainly want to talk about who I saw last night, which is we're recording Thursday afternoon. I'm talking about Wednesday night. I did, though, the other day go to day one of the Total Bummer Festival here in New York City at Knockdown Center, which was...
And this might be the thing I'm most jealous of missing.
Yeah.
And of the few times we've touched base on what you've seen, what I haven't seen, this lineup felt curated by Kurt Cobain, but therefore it felt extremely relevant to my interests, and I'm so jealous, and I had to interrupt you, but keep going. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, it's this big, St. Vitus put this on at the Knockdown Center, which is a huge venue here. It was on 2 stages. It was an alternative rock and shoegaze festival that mixed classic legendary bands with newer bands. Day 2 that I did not go to was headlined by Jesus and Mary Chain, but then had very new up and coming but popular shoegazy band Julie opening direct support, and then a whole and Tagaboat, etc.
I'm gonna actually you and say Julie is noise rock.
Noise rock. Okay, I was gonna say they're more Sonic Youth. Are they more?
They sound like Sonic
Youth.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm forgetting.
It's easy to, I mean, mentally they feel shoegaze, but then you listen and it's like Sonic Youth.
Yeah, I'm so used to every Buzzy band just being shoegaze, and then
Totally.
for starting a lot of bands blending together. So it's been a minute since I listened to Julie, but day one was, like you said, curated by Kurt Cobain. It had 3 of his favorite bands on the bill: Dinosaur Jr. headlining, Meat Puppets, who they played on the outside, technically smaller stage, which was insane because they were after Blonde Redhead, who had a massive crowd inside. Blonde Redhead, not one of Kurt Cobain's favorite bands, because that wouldn't have been possible, I don't think. But
their first album was produced by Kim Gordon.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they're not right in that.
No,
world.
I'm just saying like 1 degree of separation.
Yeah, sure. And I haven't even gotten to the third band on the bill that was one of Kurt's favorite. But
Steve Shelley. Sorry, first album was produced by Steve Shelley of Sonic Youth.
Guys, always confusing Sonic Youth members. You are
well, I think Kim produced the first whole album. Is that what I'm thinking of? This is all really important.
It is important information, and it would have been awesome if Hole was also on one of these shows. But they, well, we know Hole's not playing shows. Meat Puppets played outside at that. I've seen Dinosaur Jr. a bunch of times in the past few years, and I don't think I've seen Meat Puppets in 20 years. And so, Meat Puppets kind of like, talking about indie country, alt country. I was feeling seeing Meat Puppets right now. And
thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I feel like they are so left out of that conversation.
Yeah, and I think some of their strongest moments at this show were that when they just felt like they were jamming. And I don't know what Meat Puppets vocals were like in the past, but these days they're handling those kind of just more country-esque, easier to sing songs better. And so the stuff that was like, when you're hearing them play their song famously covered by Nirvana on Nirvana Unplugged,
Lake of Fire.
Yeah, it's not, you're thinking of the Nirvana version. It's not quite that when the Meat Puppets.
No, I mean, Meat Puppets on the album version can barely hit the notes on Lake of Fire.
So I'm not saying anything that hasn't always been true. And then they closed with. Do people like remember that Meat Puppets, like, they had that hit? They're also a one-hit wonder, like
the '90s song, right?
Yeah, the song.
Man, what's it called?
I'm forgetting the name. I should have come more prepared. We weren't supposed to talk about this show, but they close with that. So they're not
Backwater.
Yes. And Super Highlight. Certainly know that song in a different way than I know the rest of the catalog. And they play, like I said,
that one came out the year or the same year as MTV Unplugged. So that they were one of the many, because of Kurt Cobain, we get a chance at the spotlight type things.
Oh, right. And yeah, it was like a massive crowd in this outside courtyard, spilling into every direction. And it was a beautiful night. And the light show, kudos to the lights. The guy, I was actually standing near him, the guy that works the lights board at Knockdown, which also have a lot of raves and stuff. So I feel like they specialize in cool light shows. And so really it had just gotten dark. It was nice out. The light show was amazing. And there's Meat Puppets playing to this massive crowd. It was cool. And then earlier on that same outside stage was Flipper, whose frontman Bruce Luce passed away last year, I think it was. And I don't remember how active they were up until he passed.
They were already not playing with him.
Okay,
right?
that makes more sense.
David Yao was fronting Flipper for a while.
Oh, right. I've lost track. I did see Flipper with Bruce Luce flexing here at some point in the many.
That's a worth flex, a flex worth flexing.
I photographed that show for Brooklyn Vegan, including Steve Buscemi, who was front row with me, and who, like, Bruce put the mic like in Steve's face, and I've seen that picture show up elsewhere without my credit, but whatever.
All right, now you're just showing off.
And then Flipper was great because they had the singer of Piss Jeans filling in on vocals now, and like perfect.
Too perfect
for that. And that was fun. And like people were liking it. And then Dinosaur Jr., Blonde Redhead sounded great. And then Dinosaur Jr. also, of course, just always fucking great.
See, I'm happy this lineup happened when it did too, because, talking about Twitter discourse. I don't know if you've noticed, but there seems to be a lot of grunge discourse recently that kind of like ebbs and flows. And to me, like, I mean, without getting too into the like, well, grunge was never a real genre in the first place, because then you can be like, well, like, is any genre real in the first place? But like, I like my grunge filtered through how connected to Nirvana it is. The further from Nirvana it gets, usually the less I like it. So to me, like Flipper, Meat Puppets, and Dinosaur Jr. is more what I want from grunge anyway than like the bigger bands that you may be thinking of as I say the word grunge. So
well, as a metal guy, Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, two of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah, those are metal bands. But I think, it's, I mean, again, what is grunge? But like, and some, some days I'm like, well, Nirvana's a punk band and grunge isn't real. So, but
the longer it gets from grunge, the more I do feel like it's not real.
I'm the opposite. The longer it gets, the more I'm like, you know what? It's easier to say it this way. It just is a familiar, easy shorthand. I don't feel like arguing about it anymore. So that's interesting.
But last night, Wednesday night, I attended the first ever New York City show by Norwegian band Witch Club Satan. Earlier in the episode, when you brought up that Angine de Poitrine are kind of like the full package because of their costumes and how that like really adds to it. And I said, hold that thought. That was for the Witch Club Satan conversation, because this is also that. They are a Norwegian all-female punk-leaning, really felt the punk in the live show, punk-leaning feminist, political, sometimes doomy black metal trio, bass, drums, guitar.
This is why we need words like grunge, so the genre can just be one word.
With spoken word segments that are also like occult rituals. All three of the female members of Witch Club Satan scream/sing, including the drummer, who sometimes comes out to the front of the stage, just to be on mic or walk around. They're on their first U.S. tour. Last night was their first New York City show. And like I said, this is also, if you know this band, then you immediately already know what I'm talking about. The visuals, you can't help but notice them. Immediately, you can't help but notice that they often appear not to be wearing clothes. Their set was a bit over an hour, and it was kind of in 3 acts, each with different costumes. The start of the show, they're in these like cool white witch dresses with woven devil horn hats, helmets, and corpse paint, black metal corpse paint on their faces, white paint with black stuff. But also the fronts of their outfits in this first segment are cut out. So they're basically topless, except they did have tape over their nipples, which they used to not. I don't know if it's for legal reasons or if that's just like going forward as they get bigger. This is now the thing. But their European shows in 2025 got a lot of attention in metal circles, at least, or in European press, and there was no tape. Anyway, after like 20 minutes of songs, they leave the stage while like this witchy black and white footage and atmospheric music plays, and like there's a screen on the back of the stage, and then they return now in outfit 2, if you want to call it that, basically almost completely naked, still with the corpse paint on their faces, but now also with blood coming out of their mouths and floor length black hair wigs and skin colored thong underwear. I'm just saying that's what they're wearing. Now they play another like 20 minutes in this. Again, they're witches, Witch Club Satan. They're a club of witches. The name of this band is purposely a mix of political, provocative, super on the nose, ironic, tongue in cheek, however you want to say it. These 3 girls met in theater school, and they are also from Norway, the home of black metal. And there's a huge theater aspect to this, but it's cool. Like you're often a guy who's like, I don't want a stage show, just give me riffs. This is the full package, and I love it. I Obviously, I'm also a huge Guar fan, but I also always argue for Guar's music. But I think even you, when I first showed you this band, Andrew, I was like, no, look, clearly there's a visual thing going on here with this band, but these songs are pretty badass. And look, there's like a huge political thing here. And like, the witch thing is we're reclaiming which is like a negative term towards women. That's like part of the feminist aspect of this. They also, by the way, worked in some political things into the kind of spoken word, not to mention feminist stuff. A lot of the vocals are screamed you can't understand, but the spoken word stuff is is pretty straightforward about a woman being abused by a man or whatever it is. And the Satan part of it, I think, adds that kind of slightly funny twist to the end of their name, but also is subversive, right? I take it for granted that Witch Club Satan to me is like, oh, you're going super on the nose metal here, but it's like it's still subversive where you depending. There's a super I won't even say it, not safe for work named Anti-Religious shirt by a famous black metal band. The a video of that person being approached by a religious person in a restaurant and told they want to like kick their ass because they're wearing this shirt that like is mean about Jesus. That's like a viral reel I just happened to coincidentally see yesterday. And the comments are all people like super mad. I would have killed this person. I would have so there's still people out there, maybe more than ever lately, that can get super offended by a metal band being like, quote, blasphemous or satanic. Anyway, they come back for a third. They go out again after like, I'm estimating around 20 minutes each act. They come back the third time. This time, still a very revealing outfit, but this time like in this tattered denim kind of designer mummy slash scarecrow looking outfit, like modern horror movie, full body ripped up dress thing with these masks. And they end the show like that. The crowd was very much like watching. I feel like there should have been a little moshing, but it wasn't a mosh crowd. However, two of the members did stage dive, and I already knew they were going to do this because I've seen it online, but two of the members, the two non-drummers, did also crowd surf, stage dive and crowd surf for like a full song during the end. Yeah, the songs are good. But it's like really the full show that makes it. This is kind of, I feel like this is a topic that's getting talked about a lot lately because of the popularity of, I think Witch Club Satan is gaining traction for sure. Revolver Magazine posts about them a lot, and they were on Fest last year. This was their first New York City show, and it was at Bowery Ballroom. That's 600 cap. It wasn't sold out. I don't feel like word didn't get out enough, but it was a nice sized crowd in there. When we came in during the opener, it was like seemed like it was full to the back. And they're clearly only going to get more traction because the show is so good, and especially when they're showing up on fests, and you can't help but compare them to Castle Rat, who are doing a more traditional doom heavy metal thing, but also fully costumed stage show, female fronted. Both bands use a sword as a prop. Castle Rat, who I saw open for Death Clock, and Amon Amarth, also very visual bands. I talked about it in a previous episode. Recently, I saw them at that tour at Brooklyn Paramount. Castle Rat was an early opener, but the like huge venue was very much singing along and like loving it, and you could just tell this band is huge. So sure enough, Castle Rat just announced a tour this week. I'll say that now instead of later in the news, and they are headlining bigger venues than ever, including Webster Hall in New York City, which is a very big venue for an up and coming metal band to be already headlining. And the show, the visual aspect is a huge part of that for sure. And I think some people see that as a negative. I thought Castle Rat were great. I thought Witch Club Satan were great. Give me more bands like that. Hopefully one day I'll see Angine de Poitrine as well. Although unlike Castle Rat and Witch Club Satan and Castle Rat could not form secret second versions of their bands. And just because they wear costumes, they also are revealing enough that you could tell who the members are. Angine, I was thinking the other day, actually, they could get like a second pair of guys going out with the same costumes. And would people even know? maybe.
It's like Daft Punk.
Well, that apparently is happening because I saw in the news this morning, right before we started recording, that there is a fake Angine de Poitrine playing shows in Russia, apparently.
Awesome.
It's you might be asking, well, maybe they're just playing as a Angine de Poitrine tribute act, which is sure to happen and be billed as such. But the implication of this article is that this band is pretending to actually be Angine, full costumes and everything. I think there was a slight difference in guitars, but they were like tagging them. I don't know.
And they would have gotten away with it too, if not for you meddling kids.
So what new albums do we have out this week?
Like we said earlier, Converge, that's the big one for me. I just can't believe we got 9 years without a proper Converge album, and now we get 2 in the same year. And I have talked a lot about the last Converge record from this year being their fastest, punkiest album in about 20 years. And Jay Bannon, the vocalist, actually says that he considers that album a little bit more metal-leaning and this new one more of an emotional hardcore album. So, if you thought the last one was punky and fast, I thought maybe they were going to be like, okay, that's our fast one. This next one's like our slow one, do kind of like a duality type thing, but it's almost more like that's our fast one. This is our even faster one. So cool. Unbelievable. So excited. This band, again, they make it look too easy. Bands are not around for over 35 years in the fast-paced, heavy music space doing what they do. It just doesn't happen. It's a really good week for 2000s indie veterans, 90s and 2000s indie veterans, because Death Cab and Modest Mouse both have new albums out. Death Cab is their first for AOTY, and there's some kind of heavier, riffier moments on there than heaviest Death Cab stuff in like a long time. So you may be surprised if you weren't expecting that.
Not the opposite of metal, huh?
No, it isn't. Vince Staples has a new album, which is full live band, all live instruments. It's a really cool kind of rock, funk, hip hop, post-punk, kind of hybrid melting pot thing. Hard to kind of pin down as one genre. If you like the aforementioned Wendy Eisenberg and my new band Believe albums, the new Bedouin album is also in the sort of late 60s, early 70s, like psych baroque folk realm. Made with help from the Lemon Twigs and Jonathan Rado of Foxygen, all of whom are known for that exact thing. And probably my second favorite album this week after Converge is Rosa Walton of Let's Eat Grandma. So Jenny on Holiday from Let's Eat Grandma did a solo record in, I think, January, and now Rosa has her solo record. So they're kind of doing like, the duo is not broken up, but they're both doing solo records this year. And it's just, I think some of the catchiest sort of alternative indie leaning pop music that I've heard this year is on this album. And then, as always, I say more about those records and notable releases on BrooklynVegan.com. And Bill says more about another bunch of records on Indie Basement. Another veteran indie band of Montreal is a new record that Bill talks about. Also, The Cream, spelled Creem, which is Nick from Islands and Mike from Rat-a-tat. There's a new Lee Scratch Perry and Mouse on Mars album. The Slippers album Bill reviews. Is it Lay Big Bird? Like Lay, L-E-S pronounced Lay is my guess. Mm-hmm. And then there's a new Widow Speak and the new Mekons, which is maybe a dub album, but my notes are failing me.
Did Kurt Cobain like the Mekons?
Probably. Also, Widow Speak are touring with Thomas Dahlbaum. Yep. Just confirming. Widow Speak are touring with Thomas Dahlbaum.
That's cool. That's
mm-hmm.
weird. Is that weird?
I don't know, but it's cool.
Yeah. I could use any excuse to see Widow Speak, actually. As the world's biggest Mazzy Star fan. Sorry.
Yeah. When do they play in New York? I think that tour's in June. It is June. That tour's coming up. So.
Okay.
Music Hall of Williamsburg, June 16th.
So would that be Widow Speak headlining, I assume?
Yeah, Widow Speak's headlining. Yeah. Thomas Dahlbaum opening. MJ Lenderman probably not on drums for the tour, unless that's secretly why he dropped off the Zach Bryan tour.
Totally makes sense. He's like, Zach Bryan, stadiums. I gotta open for Widow Speak as a drummer.
I mean, as the new Jay Mascis, he would. All right, what else happened this week?
super tragic news this week, actually, especially here in the New York City music scene where, everybody was posting tributes to somebody who didn't get what maybe is not a household name, but wow, really affected a lot of people in the music industry, fans, and across everywhere. Doug Shaw, who played in the bands Gang Gang Dance, White Magic, Janka Nabe, how do you always say his name? Janka Nabe, and he had his solo projects, High Life, Sleepy Doug Shaw. He was a regular at venues like Union Pool in Williamsburg, passed away at 43 years old, reportedly due to a stroke. Super tragic. He was just playing shows days earlier. He, a very familiar face here in New York City, super respected musician, and rest in peace, Doug, and condolences to all his family and friends. On the BV Interviews podcast this week, Bill talked to Vince Clarke of Erasure and Depeche Mode and Yazoo, and along with Vince, his doublespeak bandmates, Neil Arthur and Benga, about the supergroup's new doublespeak album and the 11 covers they do on it, synth pop and more. Go listen and subscribe to the BV Interviews podcast to hear that. Primavera Sound is streaming this weekend, and currently, probably, if you're listening to this when it came out, the fest, which runs very late in the night and is in Europe, has sets, started on Thursday, has sets from The Cure, Ethel Cain, Addison Rae, Big Thief, Viagra Boys, Grace Ives, The XX, Gorillaz, Knocked Loose, and more, all streaming. Snail Mail and Soccer Mommy have announced a co-headline tour. Black Bananas, the 2010s era band led by Jennifer from Royal Trucks, are back and have signed with Fire Records for their first album in 12 years that will be out later this year. Right after releasing their new album on Days, rising hardcore scene metalcore band Balmora, who we talked about and reviewed their album last week, seemed to have broken up after allegations were made against a member over the weekend. They then released a statement that member was no longer in the band, but that statement also got a lot of backlash, and the band quickly deleted their socials and within 24 hours dropped off the tour they were about to start with the band Holder. That's the Holder Holder band, whose front person also appears on that Balmora album. So that tour continues now with Holder as headliner. Vivian Girls have announced some July East Coast dates ahead of their appearance at Oakland's Mosswood Meltdown. The Afghan Wigs have announced a new album and tour. Always a good thing. MIA is suing Kid Cudi over her removal from his tour, claiming she was terminated to generate publicity for the tour, which has, quote, struggled with ticket sales. Those are her words. Diggable Planets, one of my favorite 90s rap groups, are playing their 90s album Blowout Comb in full on a tour later this year. I think that album is 32 years at this point, something. Evil Island, exciting new band. The new band featuring Johnny, Cody, and Mark of the Blood Brothers, almost a full Blood Brothers reunion, as well as AOTY, formerly of Off, and They Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead, released their debut single Tiger Baby back in April, and now they've announced their debut album, Terraform the Afterlife. It's due out August 14th via Blowed Out Records, produced by Ross Robinson. But this new album announcement and song came with a very big surprise for many, and that is that the album features a song with vocals by Guy Afugazi. This is the first record he has sang on since the final Fugazi album, 2001's The Argument.
Yeah, I'm stoked to hear that.
Are you also stoked about Olivia Rodrigo covering CMAT's When a Good Man Cries for the BBC?
We love Olivia, putting on for the smaller artists.
And almost everyone at BV loves CMAT as well. So it was great to hear a song off one of our favorite albums of last year. Olivia doing that one. And this one doesn't fit into the whole Olivia rock is this rock, Weezer, Foo Fighters, Smashing Pumpkins. This is just one pop star helping out another.
CMAT's more alternative and underground in comparison.
Yes.
I think it's a really, really, really big cosign for CMAT.
I'm talking
really
genres. All right. Belle and Sebastian, who have been on tour playing their first 2 albums in full. As we said, Bill was there, saw the second night recently at Pier 17 here in New York City in the rain. He reviewed it on Brooklyn Vegan. They have put out a Scotland World Cup anthem titled It Only Takes One Lion. It's out now via Matador. One of our favorite metal bands, Mastodon, have released their first new music since parting ways since the death of co-founding vocalist guitarist Brett Hines. He died last year at 51 years old. The new song, Your Ghost Again, is a tribute to him. It was produced by Patrick Berger and Kurt Ballou of Converge, and it's the first single off a new album, their 9th, which is still to be fully announced. They also, very excitingly, announced a tour with Deaf Heaven and Alcest. I am very much looking forward to that.
Good tour for people who's picked Neurosis for the best metal album of the year.
Totally.
I say that lovingly. I know I sounded snarky, but you know, I like all those bands, but I was snarky.
I haven't seen Mastodon live in a minute, and they've been on my list. I keep missing every tour. I have seen Deaf Heaven recently. I think I missed Alcest's last tour. Anyway, 3 of our favorite metal bands.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's such a cool trio of bands.
Yahweh Nailgun have signed to 4AD. Big news for that New York City artist. And have announced an 11-minute album called Magazine will be out next week. Also in album announcement news, Charlie XCX announced a new album called Music, Fashion, Film, no and. And the cover, getting a lot of attention, has a picture of John Cale, Mark Jacobs, and Martin Scorsese. Full details about the album have yet to be revealed, but Charlie says it's 11 songs, 30 minutes, 5 seconds, and it does contain recent singles SS26 and the much talked about, quote, rock music song. By the time you hear this, Phoebe Bridgers will have played Madison Square Garden, so we'll know a lot more about that. But right now, we just know that it's happening tonight while we're recording, and it was announced earlier this week. She had been, as you probably know, she's playing all these surprise shows in different smaller cities all around the country, and then she saved the big surprise for last. Is it last? I don't know if it's last, but she suddenly gave us a new surprise that she is in fact doing one of these surprise shows in New York City, but it is not at a small club. It is at the very large Madison Square Garden. We've talked a lot about whether Phoebe would headline Madison Square Garden on her next show. We kind of assumed she would. We've said Boy Genius played Madison Square Garden, and Phoebe and Boy Genius have opened for Taylor Swift at even bigger venues. But here we go. Fast tracked to her own headlining Madison Square Garden show. She announced it just days ago, and tickets cost just $1 minimum, which was for charity. As sponsored by Tidal, so I guess that's how they're pulling it off as well. And you had to put in for tickets by saying how much you wanted to donate, $1 or up to 20. But they said that didn't affect your chances of getting tickets. And then yesterday, I think you officially found out if you got tickets. We know some people that got them. We know some people that didn't. And anyway, I'm sure we'll have much more to say about that next week.
Not even the most exciting thing happening at the Garden in the next few days.
Oh.
Because the Knicks are up 1-0 in the NBA Finals, and that's more important to New York City than any of this music stuff we've been talking about. Let's go Knicks.
Talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at BrooklynVegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.brooklynvegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.